everybody. Thank you for joining us today. It's my pleasure to speak to you all and present our program. I'd like to talk to you about the implementation of our pilot sites and exercises we have performed in order to protect cultural heritage in multiple countries. So let me start with the presentation. Could I ask for the first slide, please? Perfect. So the pilot actions were divided into two groups. The first one was pilot action checking the effectiveness of preparation strategies. And of course, the second one, pilot actions checking the effectiveness of evaluation plans in emergency phases. All right, second slide, please. Thank you. So testing and implementation at pilot sites, pilot actions checking the effectiveness of preparation strategies. DT 4.1.1 pilot action 1 was performed in Czech Republic, and it was about possible flooding. The second one, second action, it was taken place in Austria. It was about flood and fire, possible fire due to drought. And the third one was pilot action in Italy, and we were talking here about possible damage due to heavy rains. Pilot actions checking the effectiveness of evacuation plans in emergency phases was also exercised, and the fourth one took place in Slovenia, and we dealt here with the cases of heavy rains. Croatia, the next one was heavy rain and also possible fire due to drought. Next, pilot action number 6, it was performed in Hungary, and here we dealt with the risk of floods. Of course, the 7th pilot took place in Poland, and here we also dealt with heavy rain and possible floods. And as we are experiencing now in Poland heavy rain for the last 2 months, probably the pilot site will be endangered again. So let's go to the next slide, please. Here we go. So the first pilot action took place in preparation strategies for the historic place center in the Czech Republic. The Trojan Horse Gallery is particularly endangered due to possible floods. The flood scenario assumed was similar to the event which occurred in 2002 in summer. In early December, 3 days of heavy rainfall hit the area surrounding the Bohemian region, causing a significant increase of water level of the Vltava River. So on December 11 at 9 o'clock, the alert status was declared with the erection of temporary barriers in the center of Prague. Due to persistent rainfall in the period between 13 and 14 December, further actions were taken. Considering the unbearable mass of water presented in the reservoir upstream of the Vltava River, and due to also the record levels of the tributary rivers, on December 16 at 3 p.m., a decision was made to evacuate the Trojan Gallery. At 4 o'clock, the evacuation and safe storage of the artworks was carried out, as well as the implementation of preventive measures of heavy objects which cannot be easily removed due to their size. By 8 o'clock in the evening, all the operations had been concluded. The next morning, on December 17th, around 9 o'clock in the morning, the area was completely flooded, so the evacuation was done just in time. An exceptional river discharge of 5,300 cubic meters per second was recorded. So as you can see, the flood was just amazingly huge. Okay, let me move to the next slide, please. As you see in this slide, pilot action was well prepared. Here we have the team that took part in the exercise. It was a full success. So a few preventive measures were also established, and for future references, a future plan has been written. Okay, let's go to the next one, slide number 6. Here we go. The next pilot action took place in Austria, and here we had a problem with possible flooding on Danube River. And the exercise situation was flooding along the Danube River, which was likely to reach the limits of the mobile flood protection that had already been built. Unfortunately, the water level was still rising very rapidly, and there was endangerment of the city being flooded. Another aspect of the crisis situation was a big tree which was being carried by the Danube River, which crashed into the mobile elements of the barrier erected in Spain. The water began to pour out into the medieval part of the city, slowly flooding it, and because of the rising water, it also threatened the State Gallery as well. Okay, that was the situation in Austria. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, and all right, here we have the slide exactly of the emergency team taking part in exercise in Dunbai. Okay, let me go to slide number 7 now. And here we have another pilot site action in Italy, central square of the city, Piazza della Cattedrale. And here we had emergency with heavy precipitation, heavy rainfall. The exercise situation was hold on just a second, let me just skip it, okay. Due to heavy rainfalls, a thunderstorm hit the city of Ferrara. The rain showed a record rainfall of 36 millimeters in only 20 meters that caused flooding in several areas of the city center. Among these areas, there was a cathedral square, the basin, and the entrance hall of the cathedral. Due to all open spaces being fully paved and therefore waterproofed, the rainfall water runs off only through the mixed sewage network, which are way undersized for this kind of amount of water running through the area. Soon, the whole area of the whole tested area was underwater and flooded. Okay, let's move to another slide, please. Slide 11. Okay, here we have the team in Italy cooperating together and the prevention measures. Okay, next one, please. Okay, and we have this emergency plan in Slovenia. Here we also dealt with heavy rains and possible flooding of the area. Here the exercise included removing movable objects of cultural heritage from the museum attic where the roof had been damaged due to heavy rain. The problem with the museum is that the museum has a storage which is located in the attic. Unfortunately, most of the stored items are very vulnerable to damage. And there's also a problem with the access to the attic because there's only one entrance. And the scheme of the exercise was to find out if, in the case of unexpected event like heavy rain, the movable cultural heritage could be evacuated. Okay, let's go to next slide, please. So here we have the team and the evacuation of movable artifacts. Let's go to slide number 13. Okay, next event took place in Croatia. So heavy rain and fire due to drought. In Croatia, we have a problem with possible floods that may be caused by huge wind from the sea, Jugo, and also possible drought to possible fire due to drought. And because this city is vulnerable to fire, the fire can easily spread from building to building. Okay, let's look at slide number 14, please. And due to heavy rain, as I said, the buildings are prone to be flooded, and also the fire due to drought may spread very quickly from building to building. And if you look at the slide number 15, please. Here we have the team in action. And let me tell you a few words about this pilot action here. For the city of Castella, floods and fires due to drought were identified as the two most important risk factors. Due to a high volume of rainfall in a very short period of time, the dry watercourses located at the Kozjak slopes begin to spill out, and large amounts of water flowed into the town of Castella. The danger of flooding was further reinforced by the powerful wind Hugo that blows from the sea to the mainland, rising the sea level and causing the waves to flood the area covered by the plant. Large amounts of water without an adequate drainage system started leaking through the stone streets of the old Gomlika and Stratflik reservoirs and outstretched into the buildings. A few of the buildings in Castella region are protected under cultural heritage, such as the Archbishop Palace, which is part of the Museum of the City of Castella, as well as the Castella Gomilica and other buildings. There are also different elements of cultural heritage that are stored in the mentioned above buildings. The protection of the movable cultural heritage due to its value is very important in the emergence of risk and the creation of evacuation plans, which are here very crucial. In addition of floods caused by tidal waves and heavy rainfall, evacuation plans should also be drawn up in the event of fire due to drought. Namely, all the outside walls of the protecting buildings are made of firm stone. Construction elements are mainly made entirely from wood, which are prone to heavy fire. During the summer, in most situations, there is a lack of rain and high temperatures presented. Wooden infrastructure is most vulnerable to fire. The risk of fire in urban protected settlements as cultural heritage rises exponentially in the summer period. So the risk of fire is especially high during summer period. Fires in the area of Castella most often occur in the summer months due to long periods of drought. Since the occurrence and lasting of the period is increasing, fires spread very quickly by vegetation and strong winds that make it difficult to control fires. In such conditions, fires can quickly spread to urbanized parts of the town where cultural heritage becomes potentially endangered. The main threat in these conditions is collapsing of wooden constructions that holds roof and staircases, causing casualties and endangers the building itself, which very often is valuable historic site. For this reason, it is necessary to include a plan for the protection and rescue of cultural heritage in the event of fire in the evacuation plan. So as you see, the situation in Croatia is pretty complex. Let me move to slide number 16, please. All right, next scenario we had in Hungary. In Hungary, we have also a huge risk due to heavy rainfall, which may make the historical site prone to being flooded by flash rains. The area is affected by heavy rain, and other area is affected by stormy winds. The flash flood breaks into the exhibition area of the pilot sites. There were visitors on the site during the exhibition. Unfortunately, a few of them were injured and had to be evacuated from the facility. Of course, everything has been only an exercise, but here we had to work on every scenario possible. And during, so here in the museum, we also had a situation with a violent storm where a lightning, a thunderbolt struck the building, causing a fire to the roof structure as a part of exercise. And parts of the building walls were also flooded due to heavy rainfall. So it was another exercise in Hungary. And if you look at the next slide, please. You can see the team working together, working on protecting the walls and also protecting the place from being flooded with this heavy rainfall. Well, let me now move to slide number 18 and 19. So here's the 18, all right. And here there's a Polish pilot site, and here we are dealing with a very old church from the 15th century, which is mainly wooden. And the Church of Exhalation of Holy Cross in Starowiec is located in the south of Poland on a slope. And this church is prone to heavy rainfalls. And mainly because the church is situated on a very steep slope, the water running down the slope very often floods the church, making it vulnerable to high damage. So the exercise took place on September 30th last year, and around 2 p.m. heavy rainfall began in Starowiec, and at around 2:50, due to a constant rainfall, the water, which was no longer absorbed by the ground, created an artificial river on the road between the fields above the church and started flowing towards the building. In addition, due to the wind, the roof was damaged and there was a risk of destruction of historic paintings. So we had a team working on evacuation of the paintings, evacuation of historical artifacts. Of course, a few local teams of fire department took part in the exercise, which also showed the weak and strong points of the evacuation. Okay, let me go to slide number 20 and talk a bit about conclusion from pilot actions. So here we can see that a team of firefighters working on the evacuation on the paintings and artifacts from the church. And let me move to another slide, please. So here we have conclusion from the pilot actions, and change of legal regulations is very needed. So they require the creation of plans to protect cultural heritage in the event of crisis situations. It's a very needed document now. The plans should include procedures for dealing with various emergencies, along with maps, routes of the evacuation of valuable items in order to protect them during the evacuation. And of course, it should be based on the value of the artifacts being evacuated. Okay, number two, they need to organize cyclical training, which is also crucial in the field of protection and evacuation of historic buildings for rescuers and local people. So the need was also noticed to train special teams of volunteers, maybe in the fire department, so they know how to deal with historical monuments and how to deal with historical artifacts due to their value. Number three, also there's a need to organize cyclical practical exercises on the evacuation of the historic buildings or building containing historic exhibitions with the participation of rescue services. They have to be trained as well. Number four, rescue units closest to the cultural heritage should be equipped with a special equipment enabling them to quick and effective rescue. Very often these teams don't have needed equipment, which is a must if we want to protect cultural heritage fully. Number five, cultural heritage objects should have special equipment on site to protect and protective materials to protect them and prepare movable monuments for evacuation. Very often these cultural heritage sites, these buildings don't have the needed equipment on site, and they have to be transported during emergency situations. Sometimes time is very crucial and the equipment is not transported in time. So in current conditions, not every Central European country has an obligation to create plans for the protection of cultural heritage in the event of crisis. And in some, it is only necessary in the event of fire or flood. In addition, in Central European countries that have regulations regarding advanced conservation plans, there is no control of their implementation. by which many facilities, despite the relevant regulations, still do not have protection plans, which is a huge problem. All right, it is local people and the nearest emergency services that are located to cultural services that will be the first forces available to assist in evacuation operations. We should strive to broaden the knowledge in the field of protection, transport, security, and evacuation of historic property. It is crucial to perform such trainings to local people. And the last one, only a practical practice of evacuation will give the opportunity to familiarize the rescuers with the area of operation, and those in charge of cultural heritage will learn about the weaknesses of the facilities. Training of the rescuers is the must. Necessary organizations changes and the necessary time, equipment, and number of rescuers needed to carry out fast and effective actions. As you can see, we have a lot of topics to work on and to strengthen the protection of cultural heritage. Thank you for your attention.